quiet pause before the storm, a moment to prepare for what's to come. This is not just a story about a missing person. It is about a truth hidden beneath the surface, a discovery that changed everything. A case that began with unanswered questions and ended with revelations no one expected. For years, a father was gone, without a trace, without a goodbye. But the past never stays buried forever. Tonight, the full story unfolds. The mystery, the investigation, the shocking truth waiting beneath the earth. Welcome. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything. For 3 long years, a man's name faded from conversations. His absence was noted, then gradually accepted. No one knew where he had gone, only that he was no longer around. Some assumed he had started over elsewhere, cutting ties with a life he no longer wanted. Others believed he might have met an unfortunate fate, his story left unresolved. Then, one ordinary afternoon, a quiet backyard in a suburban neighborhood became the center of a discovery no one expected. Beneath the surface, something had remained hidden all along, something that changed the course of an entire investigation. The truth, once uncovered, was almost too staggering to comprehend. The man who had been missing for years had never left at all. He had been there the entire time, buried in a place no one would have thought to look, his own daughter's backyard. Authorities quickly revisited old reports, piecing together a timeline that had once seemed inconclusive. At the heart of it all was a daughter who had publicly spoken about her father before, but not in the way one might expect. She had accused him of allowing her to fall into a destructive path. She had blamed him for the choices she had made. And now, she was the key to understanding how he had vanished in the first place. The case was far from simple. It raised unsettling questions about trust, about fractured families, and about what really happens behind closed doors. Was this the result of long-standing tension? Or was there more to the story? What led to a man being forgotten for so long, only to resurface in the most unexpected way? And above all, how had no one noticed? This is a story about more than just a discovery. It's about the unraveling of a truth that had been buried, both figuratively and literally, for years. And as investigators began piecing it all together, they found themselves stepping into a narrative that was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The man at the center of this case was known by those around him as reserved but responsible. Provider. Someone who, despite his own challenges, made sure his family never went without. Friends described him as quiet, often lost in thought, yet dependable in the ways that mattered. He was a man who followed routine, rarely drawing attention to himself. But inside his home, things were not as stable as they seemed. His relationship with his daughter had always been complicated. What started as small disagreements eventually grew into something far more difficult to navigate. She was outspoken, independent, and sometimes rebellious. There were times when she felt unheard, times when she believed he failed to guide her the way a father should. In moments of frustration, she placed blame on him, saying he had stood by when she needed direction the most. Whether justified or not, resentment began to take root, deepening over the years. Those who knew them saw the tension, but no one could have predicted how far it would go. Some believed it was just another case of generational differences, a father and daughter struggling to understand one another. Others, however, sensed a disconnect that ran much deeper. As time passed, their arguments became more frequent. Neighbors recalled raised voices, though they never imagined it would lead to anything beyond household disputes. Friends of the daughter noted how her opinions about her father shifted, how she spoke of him less with affection and more with frustration. Then, one day he was gone, and the questions began. The initial assumption was that he had left of his own accord. Maybe he had needed space, or maybe he had simply chosen to step away from a situation that had become too exhausting to bear. His departure was met with curiosity but not with urgency. No one filed a report right away. No alarms were raised. And slowly, his absence became just another unspoken truth. But as time passed, those closest to him couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The last time anyone saw him, nothing seemed unusual. It was a day like any other. Quiet, routine, and unremarkable. He had gone about his normal activities, moving through the world in the way he always had. A trip to the grocery store, a short conversation with a neighbor, then back home. But after that, nothing. No more morning walks. No more sightings at the usual places. Calls went unanswered. His presence, once a familiar part of daily life, was suddenly gone. At first, no one panicked. People disappear for all kinds of reasons. Maybe he needed time to himself. Maybe he had chosen to distance himself from the tension at home. Some assumed he had relocated, leaving behind a situation that had become too difficult to manage. It wasn't ideal, but it wasn't unheard of. The daughter's response only deepened the mystery. She didn't seem alarmed. When asked, she told people he had left on his own. He had walked away from everything, his home, his responsibilities, his life. That was the story, and for a while no one questioned it. Family members had their doubts. But without clear signs of trouble, what could they do? There was no reason to suspect anything more. Some even believed she might be telling the truth. After all, people make choices others don't always understand. Maybe this was one of those times. When weeks turned into months, and months stretched into a year, the uncertainty grew. Friends began to talk. Neighbors whispered about the sudden vanishing. But without new information, the questions led nowhere. Authorities were eventually contacted, but by then, time had passed. The search began with interviews, gathering small pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. No transactions on his bank accounts. No confirmed sightings. No travel records. Just silence. They asked the daughter again, pressing for details. The answer remained the same: he left. That was all. Without clear evidence of wrongdoing, the case didn't move forward. No signs of a struggle. No reports of conflict beyond what was already known. Without leads, without witnesses, without anything solid to work with, the search slowed. And then, like so many cases without answers, it faded. The world moved on. His name, once spoken with concern, became nothing more than a memory. Until, 3 years later, everything changed. It started with a home project. A simple plan to clear out the backyard, to make space for something new. The ground had been untouched for years, covered with patches of overgrown grass and scattered debris. Then, the digging began. What was supposed to be an ordinary task turned into something else entirely. A shovel hit something firm, something that didn't belong beneath the soil. At first, it seemed like just another buried object, a forgotten piece of the past. But as more earth was removed, it became clear that this was no ordinary discovery. The authorities were called. Officers arrived quickly, setting up barriers around the property. Specialists moved in, carefully removing layers